Hello, welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of Life Beyond Loss, the podcast. This is a guest show where we share the most amazing and inspirational stories of navigating grief and loss through to healing and transformation. I'm your host, Louise Kresick, grief and loss coach, and today we're talking to the lovely Parul Banka about how losing her health and life as she knew it changed her world and led her to becoming an established author and coach. Stay tuned, you're really going to want to hear this. Today is Parul Banka. She's a coach and a storytelling extraordinaire. Parul, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Hi, Liz. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here on the show with you.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. I'm so excited to be doing this.
Yeah, me too.
You're my very first guest.
Oh, exciting, exciting.
So let's kickstart this show then by hearing a little bit about you then. Why don't you tell us, who you are and what exactly do you do?
Louise, so I call myself a storytelling coach. What it means is I help fellow coaches, trainers, and consultants communicate their message, connect with their audience, and establish their credibility as subject matter experts through the power of their personal story. So I'm all about helping people use their personal stories to communicate, to connect with the audience and establish their credibility. In short, I help these guys get their message out. I help them get seen and heard without sounding salesy, pushy, or preachy. That's what I do.
Brilliant. So even better then that we've got this storytelling expert here on the show, which is all about sharing stories. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I know that your story is amazing. And when I first heard your story, it was truly inspirational to me. So Parul, will you share with us a little bit about your story and, particularly your experience of loss?
Yes, definitely, Louise. I'm happy to share my story with your audience. So what really happened was my life was going well. And with the benefit of hindsight, I can say that it was running pretty well on an autopilot mode. So all that I did was work, which was good, spend time with my family, spend time on hobbies, the typical autopilot mode. And then in the week of my 34th birthday, I was diagnosed with the most aggressive kind of breast cancer. And that's when my life really changed. So I did what I had to do to get through cancer, the whole thrill of treatment and everything else. But during that long phase of treatment, for the first 6 months, honestly, I didn't really know if I would be here, if I would really make it to the other side. And during those 6 months, during that uncertainty and loss of control, I just made a promise to myself that if I get the opportunity to make it to the other side, I'm going to live the rest of my life, no matter how long it'll be or how short it'll be, to the best of my ability. That was a promise that kept me going, and I made that promise to myself every single day. And guess what? I made it to the other side. Yay! I'm very grateful for that. I don't take it for granted ever. And that's how my life changed because of cancer. And when I made it to the other side, it was time for me to keep my promise that I had made to myself. And so I just stepped away from my own life, had a long, hard look at it, sorted out my priorities, and brought in the changes to create the life that I truly wanted to live. which meant bringing in transformation at all levels, really, because my body had changed. So as far as my physical fitness was concerned, it changed. My health changed. There were things I could do before. There were things I couldn't do anymore. The whole mind and emotional and the psychological aspect of my life changed because of the impact of cancer and its treatment. My relationships changed, some for the better, some not so much. My spirituality changed. And my work changed because I didn't want to continue doing what I was doing. I wanted to focus on one particular aspect of my life, of work that'll enable me to contribute and make a difference in this world. I was really happy doing what I used to do. I worked in HR and learning and development before, but I really wanted to focus on what really fulfilled my need to contribute amongst everything that I did before, which was coaching. And out of the whole coaching, it was storytelling that literally made my heart sing, because I wanted to help other people be seen and heard. And so I decided to work as a storytelling coach. And so from living on an autopilot mode, I started living consciously, and that's where I am today.
Wow, what a story. What a story. And I can just sense, the level of impact that would have on your life. Like you said, it's not just about, your health and physically what happens. It's the sort of knock-on effects that has around you, your relationships and everything else in your life. So how did you, sort of navigate all of that change in your life?
Oh, I had a lot of help, honestly. So it wasn't just me who made it happen. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, I had a brilliant healthcare team looking after me, my doctors, consultants, nurses, the whole healthcare team, absolutely fantastic. Mm. When I made it to the other side, there was a lot of rehab kind of help I had. So there's some fantastic cancer support centers here in London where I used to go, where I used to visit. They looked after me. They helped me heal, not just physically, but also emotionally and psychologically. I had access to some fantastic counselors and psychotherapists that helped me deal with the loss and the change that I was going through. I had some other therapists, like my homeopath, my massage therapist, a lot of other physical therapists. And when I was ready to move forward in life, I had some really fantastic coaches who helped me move forward because I wanted to create this new life, but I really had no idea how to do it and where to start and how to go about it. So that's where coaching came into picture. I also had a lot of support from my family. So there was a lot of love I had, especially from my mom and my husband and my friends. I think it was the love of my husband that just kept me going. That was fantastic.
Yeah. It's so important, isn't it?
It is it's so important to have people in your corner when you're going through such a mess and so much transformation and change all at the same time.
Yeah. And I guess there's some people out there as well who may be dealing with this sort of loss, but also might feel equally quite lonely. So perhaps they're, not in necessarily a loving relationship, or they may be feeling like they don't have that many people around them. And so what would you kind of suggest for those people, or what would be, a little sort of bit of advice that you'd offer to somebody who may be feeling a bit isolated and a bit lonely in the journey?
Yeah, I can definitely say something about that, because cancer as such is considered a very lonely and a very isolating experience. Mm-hmm. And that is because it is such a long experience. It doesn't stop in 6 months. It doesn't stop in a year. It can go on for years and years. And I was in this situation for about 5 years when I truly started feeling that I was getting back to what I could really call a normal life. So it's a long experience, and therefore I also felt isolated and lonely despite all the love and all the support I had. And one thing that I would say to all these people who who feel lonely during time of transformation and loss is that you don't have to be alone. You don't have to do this alone. I mean, I truly feel that I couldn't be where I am today if I didn't have the support of all these people. There are people who want to help you. You may have those people in your community. You may have those people amongst your friends or amongst your family. Otherwise, there are people in this world who really want to help. People like, for example, in my specific case, people at the cancer support centers. There are so many volunteers who want to help. There's professional help that's available because I invested in professional help, in therapy and coaching, and so I just didn't have to do all by myself. I could very easily feel that there was nobody who cared, but actually there are people who do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, I mean, particularly in my own experience of loss, I had lost my parents and I wasn't married at that time, so I did feel quite alone. But I think it's about just being brave enough to just reach out to somebody,
Yes.
Anybody that you feel you can trust and that's going to just help you sort of take the next step as well. And then there are also some fantastic professional services out there as well. It's just about, I think, being brave enough to just take that first step. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree with you. And this is something that I recommend to people hugely, to seek help. And I'll mention a couple of other points about it. There are lots of people who tend to think that taking help is a sign of weakness, but honestly, it is not. Taking help is not a sign of weakness, people. And that is something I want to emphasize on, because to me, taking help is a sign of strength, because you can take help only when you let yourself be vulnerable, only when you gather the courage and take action to create the life that you want to create, to be who you want to be. And so it is not weakness at all. It is actually a sign of strength, because not many people have that strength.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that's fantastic advice.
Thank you.
Kind of fast forward a little bit further along in your journey, and aside from the support, what is it that you think helped you to recover and heal from your loss? Was there like a particular defining moment in that journey?
I would say it was a collection of lots and lots of defining moments. I do like to pinpoint to a specific moment in my journey wherein I was sitting with my oncologist and sharing with him how low I felt. I was going through the final leg of my treatment, and everything just looked uncertain and bleak. And we were talking about recurrence of cancer, which was one of my biggest fears then. Mm-hmm. And I was just saying, I don't know how it is going to be in the future, whether I'm going to be here, whether cancer is going to come back. I'm not sure if I can go through this again. And, this fantastic doctor who was instrumental in saving my life, he said something to me very powerful. I call him the sage in my story. And in that moment, he was not just my consultant, he was actually my life coach. And he went on to say, we grow when we face adverse situations. We are like trees and shrubs. We need to be pruned in order to flower. Every tough situation that we go through makes us strong. We learn through adversity. And then he just stopped for a moment and he said, I've seen so many people go through cancer and survive. And this is the moment where I was in my life. Many of them come back and say that their lives changed forever after cancer, and not necessarily for the worse. Cancer is a life-changing experience. Let it be an experience that changes things for the better for you. And it is okay to be scared about how many years you have or not. But more importantly, you are here today. And that is what matters.
I just got absolute tingles and shivers when I was listening to the advice of your sage slash consultant, because I just think, you know, how true is that? And I think it's really, really helpful to, you know, reframe the whole sort of experience of what you're going through into, you know, what's possible, what can actually happen, and sort of try to shift our focus, I guess, to some extent, you know, away from the sort of the negative aspects. And it's okay. We're human beings, aren't we? We, you know, it's difficult to kind of sort of process what's going on, but I think we can just, you know, for me, rekindle that bit of hope inside us. It just makes all the difference.
The reframing that you talk about is so important, because in that moment, what I was really looking for was a crystal ball. I wanted him to look into this crystal ball and tell me it's going to be okay. And he said, I don't have that crystal ball, and I can't give you that assurance. But what I can tell you is you have a choice to make the most of what you have. You have the choice to make the most of the opportunity you have. And so that's what I did.
Yeah. And how do you think then facing this adversity in your life has helped you to grow?
Oh, it has changed me as a person, because that's where the whole transformation started. I changed my work. Before, I worked as an employee and in HR and learning and development. But now I just wanted to do coaching, and I thought setting up my own practice as a coach would help me fulfill that objective. So the whole entrepreneurship journey started. I also made a lot of contribution to other people in the world of cancer. So I became somebody who really got into volunteering. And I did lots and lots of volunteering. I participated in workshops to improve cancer care in the country at Macmillan Cancer Support, at the NHS. I did lots of speaking wherein I shared my story. I did that for NHS. I did it for cancer support centers. I did it for Macmillan. I raised huge amounts of money for a cancer support center through speaking. I ran courses. I reviewed books. I campaigned. I supported people through cancer on a one-on-one basis. And all these things, they fulfilled my deep need for making a difference, and also helped me heal. I transformed into an author because I published a book about my cancer experience. So these were some of the big changes. I would say after cancer, I started getting in touch with who I really was, because most of us tend to get conditioned while growing up. It happened with me too. After cancer, I began peeling off those external layers I had collected when I was growing up, and I started getting in touch who I really was when I was little.
Yeah. Do you feel like it sort of fundamentally changed your core and sort of your recognition of who you really were?
Yes, definitely. There was a lot of change with regards to the identities that I had built up. And because a lot of those things were taken away at the time of cancer, and a lot of those things I chose to drop at the time of cancer. The whole definition of the identities that I had built up for myself, they completely changed. So I accepted who I truly was. I was actually a square peg who was trying to fit into round holes while growing up. And now I said, you know what? I'm a square peg, and that's who I'm going to be, because that is a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have done some amazing work, some amazing things with, you know, your experience. And I'm really intrigued actually to find out a little bit more about your book, because I actually didn't know you'd written a book either. So
okay.
Tell us.
So I decided to write my book during the treatments. It started as a very personal journal,
Yeah.
And the reason it has started was because during chemo, I couldn't sleep because I was too poorly and I was in too much pain. And insomnia was actually a side effect of the treatment. So I couldn't sleep. And so what would I do during the nights? And so I would just sit and type away my experience. That's how it started, as a very personal journey. And then gradually it just grew into something bigger. One day I was just writing my experience, and my mom, who had come over to look after me, she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just writing about my cancer experience." And she said, "Are you going to get it published?" And honestly, until then, I hadn't thought about it. Until then, it was just a personal diary. And I said, "Oh, I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it yet." But that is how the idea to become a published author got into my head. And so that personal journal transformed into a book, and I decided to publish it. I decided to do that for three main reasons. Number one is to build awareness about cancer, because in the world of cancer, awareness can be the difference between surviving or not surviving. The sooner somebody goes to a director and the sooner somebody goes to a doctor and starts taking the treatment, the better their chances of surviving are. So there was an element of building awareness about cancer. There was a huge element of helping people through inspiration, people who are going through something similar, to help them. And there was a third very important aspect, which is a cultural aspect. Now, from the part of the world where I come from, Louise, cancer is judged. Cancer is a taboo. It has a social stigma. People don't talk about it. And so when I went through cancer, I didn't want to be one of those people who didn't talk about it, because to me, staying quiet about cancer and my experience was adding to the problem. So I wanted to come out and talk about it in the open, because to me, that was becoming part of the solution. That was, for me, challenging the stigma that is associated with cancer. And so I just went ahead and wrote a book about it and published it with Balboa Press.
Fantastic. I actually, for one, need to get a copy of this book.
Sure.
Let's put up a link for people to access your book. That would be fantastic.
All right. Yeah, we can do that.
I think what I'd like to sort of, I guess, offer our audience as well is in this sort of all of this loss that you describe, what would be your words of encouragement to offer people who might be, perhaps at the early stages of their loss right now, and maybe the grief is maybe quite fresh? What would you recommend for them? How would you encourage them?
Okay, I would say three things to these people. One is, my biggest advice would be just hang in there, one step at a time. That should be the focus. When we are going through grief or loss or too many changes, we can be in a situation where we feel that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. And so what is really important is to take just the next step. What I'm talking about is just take the next step and do not wait to see the entire staircase. Every little step that you take towards your new life, it'll all build up. And so don't try and do everything. Just take the next step. Just hang in there. That's my first advice. My second advice is something that we touched upon before. Take help. When you feel ready, you take help. You can reach out externally to take help, or you can do a few things on your own. For example, when I was going through cancer, journaling is what helped me. And that book transformed my personal diary, later on transformed into a book. So if it is journaling that helps you with letting out your emotions and what you're going through, do that. If it is painting, do that. If it is speaking, do that. If it is reconnecting with loved ones, do that. If it is gardening, do that. So do what helps you. There must be something that would help you. There are people who get into drawing and coloring. Do that. So take help. That's what I'm saying. Either do it yourself or take help from other people. And the third thing that I want to share with you is this is actually one of my biggest learning from the whole experience of change and loss. And I would put it like this, that being in a fearful situation is a circumstance, but being stuck in it is a choice, because every day is a new day. We can choose to stay stuck where we are, or we can get up, seek help, and take a step towards the life we want to create. And why this is so important is because when we are going through loss, especially when it is raw and fresh, we may feel that there is nothing we can do to deal with the situation. But honestly, no one can take away how you respond to it. For example, you may have lost a loved one, but no one can stop you from celebrating the time you have had together. I may not have chosen cancer, but I could choose my response in how I wanted to live the rest of my life. And this is where your and my superpower lies, in our choices after the loss or after the change. So that's what I would say. Just hang in there, take help, do what you have got to do to get through it, and exercise your choice, because that's what your superpower is. That's what your ally is.
3 absolutely fantastic tips there. Couldn't have said it better myself. Absolutely.
Thank you, Liz.
I am so pleased that you joined me on this very first show, Parul. It's been absolutely amazing. But tell us before we go, how can people get in touch with you?
People can get in touch with me through social media. I am present on Facebook. I also have a Facebook group. I call it Rewire Your Story. I am on YouTube. I run a YouTube channel in my name, Coach Parul Banka. I'm on LinkedIn. So social media is one platform. People can write to me directly at parulbanka@caramelcoaching.com. I operate under Caramel Coaching. And yes, so people can write to me and people can find me on social media.
Yeah, there's no hiding on social media.
There's no hiding on social media.
So thank you so much for everything you shared and for being here today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Likewise, Liz. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and sharing my story.